Researchers once tracked two groups of young people for 20 years. One group made small, disciplined choices, reading just 10 minutes a day, exercising a little, speaking truth even when it was hard. The other group followed comfort, skipped learning, avoided effort, spoke whatever felt easy. After 2 decades, the gap was staggering. The first group built healthier families, stronger minds, and deeper peace, while the second was tangled in regret, broken relationships, and health battles. One tiny choice at a time carved 2 entirely different destinies. That's the hidden power of choices, silent decisions shaping futures, shaping souls, and shaping the very person you become. Researchers tell us the average person makes around 35,000 decisions in a single day. Most are so small you barely notice them, whether to hit snooze, whether to scroll on your phone, whether to eat an apple or reach for chips, whether to answer someone with kindness or with irritation. And yet those tiny, almost invisible choices are the brushstrokes painting the masterpiece of your life. One choice may feel like a pebble dropped into the river, but with time, those pebbles create the current that pushes your soul downstream, either toward light or toward darkness. The truth is, there is no such thing as a neutral choice. Every decision has weight, every decision has consequence, every decision is a step toward a version of yourself you are becoming. C.S. Lewis once wrote that with every decision you are turning yourself into either a heavenly creature or a hellish one. Think about that for a moment. When you choose to forgive, you are shaping your character into something radiant, something strong, something capable of love. When you choose to hold on to bitterness, you are shaping yourself into something smaller, harder, colder. And you rarely see the transformation in a single day. It is slow, almost silent, like clay being molded by an unseen hand. But give it years, and the contrast becomes undeniable. Take the story of 2 young men starting college at the same time. The first decides he will wake up early, read something uplifting each morning, and treat others with respect. He chooses discipline when friends invite him to constant parties, and he chooses courage when classes get hard. The second chooses ease. He skips lectures, drifts with the crowd, and makes excuses instead of effort. They both start with equal potential, but after 4 years the gap between them is vast. One has grown in wisdom, integrity, and purpose, while the other is weighed down by regret, debt, and a fractured sense of self. What created the difference? Not a single dramatic event, but the daily, ordinary choices made in private when no one was watching. Science confirms what faith has always known. Neuroscientists speak of neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself through repeated actions. When you make the same choice consistently, your brain strengthens that pathway until it becomes second nature. The person who chooses honesty, even in small matters, builds a brain wired for truth. The person who chooses deceit lays down pathways of fear, anxiety, and hiding. Psychology calls this the principle of reinforcement. Scripture calls it sowing and reaping. Life calls it destiny. Every choice is like planting a seed. Some seeds are wheat, some are weeds. A seed does not reveal its harvest immediately. At first, the soil looks the same, quiet and uneventful. But weeks later, something begins to sprout. Months later, it begins to grow tall. Years later, it becomes a forest. A teenager may think a single decision to cheat on an exam is insignificant, just a shortcut. But over time, that choice shapes his character to seek shortcuts in relationships, in career, even in faith. On the other hand, a teenager who chooses to study with integrity develops discipline and confidence that will serve them for decades. The divine perspective adds another layer of weight to this. God has given human beings the rare gift of free will. Out of all creation, we are the only ones with the power to choose to love or to rebel, to give or to withhold, to seek truth or to embrace lies. Angels and demons are locked in their choices. Animals follow instinct. But you and I, every sunrise, are handed the brush and told, paint today with your choices. Heaven watches not just the grand gestures, but the daily acts that no one applauds. Because destiny is not built in front of crowd, it is built in the quiet corners of your private decisions. Let's bring it closer to everyday life in America. A single parent stands in the kitchen after a long day, exhausted, and has to choose between collapsing in front of the TV or spending 10 minutes reading with their child. That 10-minute choice, repeated night after night, creates either a bond of trust and love that lasts a lifetime or a distance that slowly grows into silence. A high school student sits in the cafeteria and chooses whether to speak up when someone is being mocked. That choice creates either the courage to stand for justice or the habit of staying silent in the face of wrong. A middle-aged man facing stress at work chooses whether to drown it in alcohol or take a walk and pray. One choice shapes a chain of addiction, the other builds a pathway to resilience. Fear enters here because we realize how fragile and serious this is. One wrong choice can alter years. One decision made in anger, a drunk driver getting behind the wheel, a spouse speaking words that cannot be unsaid, can scar generations. That is not meant to paralyze you, but to awaken you. Every day you are building a structure that either stands firm or collapses when storms come. And storms always come. But there is also deep hope in this truth, because one right choice can also change everything. A teenager choosing to leave a toxic friendship may avoid years of heartbreak. A business leader choosing integrity over profit may inspire hundreds of employees to live with honor. A husband choosing to apologize instead of defend himself may open the door to healing in his marriage. And when someone chooses to surrender to God, the ripple of that choice flows not only into their own life, but into their children, grandchildren, and communities. Science has found that trauma can be passed down through generations, but so can healing. Epigenetics shows that choices to live with peace, to forgive, to eat healthy, to live faithfully, can literally alter the genetic expressions passed to descendants. The weight of this is breathtaking. Your choices are not just about you. They echo in the lives of those around you and in the lives of those who will come after you. Your decision to live with wisdom today may shield your grandchildren from battles you will never see. Your decision to compromise may burden them with chains you never meant to hand down. This is why Lewis said that every decision is bending you toward one eternal destination. Picture the crossroads you face daily. To wake up and give thanks or to complain. To open social media and envy others or to open a book and grow. To gossip about someone or to defend them. To waste another evening numbing yourself or to take one step toward your calling. The crossroads is not far away. It is every single moment. And the terrifying and thrilling truth is that your feet are always moving. You are never standing still. With every yes and every no, you are shaping your future self. And here lies the secret that so few grasp. Destiny is not discovered, it is designed. People wait for fate to reveal itself, but fate is being written through your habits, through your choices, through the way you treat the cashier at the grocery store, and the way you treat your own thoughts when no one is around. You cannot choose your past, you cannot choose all circumstances, but you can choose your response. And your response is the seed of your future. C.S. Lewis once said, "You can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending." That sentence carries thunder in its simplicity. No matter what choices you have made in the past, no matter how much regret clings to you, the next choice is still in your hands. And that is where freedom lies. The power of life does not exist in yesterday's mistakes, but in today's decision. You can choose a new story. You can choose a new path. You can choose a new identity. Think of the addict who decides to make one courageous choice to get help. Think of the widow who decides to step outside after grief and greet the sunlight. Think of the young person who decides to say no to pressure and yes to their values. These choices may look small to the world, but heaven rejoices because a new destiny is being carved. This is the mystery. Your choices are both deeply human and profoundly divine. They are shaped by your psychology, your brain chemistry, your habits, but they are also watched by eternity and woven into God's great story. You are not a puppet, you are not a machine, you are a soul entrusted with power. And that power is choice. So let the weight of that sink in. Let it shake you awake. You are making thousands of decisions today, and each one is chiseling the stone of your character. Each one is sculpting the person you will wake up as tomorrow. And the person you become will determine how you live, how you love, and how you are remembered. You are not just living for yourself. You are living for everyone who will be touched by the ripple of your choices. And when you stand before God, all those choices will stand with you. They will testify of what you became. Every word, every act of kindness, every act of selfishness, they all echo into eternity. This is not to crush you, but to call you higher. To say, live awake, live intentional, live as though every moment matters, because it does. Your destiny is not something waiting at the finish line. Your destiny is being created right now, in this very moment, with the choice you are about to make. There is a mystery hidden in the ordinary that most people overlook. We often think our lives are defined by the giant moments, graduations, weddings, promotions, tragedies, or miracles. We assume destiny hangs on the turning points we can circle on a calendar. Yet what truly shapes us are the choices we make when no one is watching, when no one claps, when it feels like nothing much is happening. The decisions that seem almost invisible are the ones carving the deepest marks on our souls. Think of a person who chooses to pick up a book for 10 minutes each night instead of scrolling on their phone until they fall asleep. At first, it looks like nothing. 10 minutes of reading will not transform a career, will not heal a wound, will not bring instant success. But after a year, that person has consumed entire shelves of wisdom, while another has consumed only endless noise. After 10 years, the gap between them is almost impossible to bridge. One has nourished their mind and spirit, the other has fed only distraction. That is the silent power of small choices. The same truth is seen in health. A teenager chooses soda over water one day, fries over fruit another day, and the habit solidifies. It feels harmless in the moment, but compounded over years, the body carries the scars. Another teenager chooses small acts of care, drinking water, moving their body, resting well. At the start, no one notices, not even the teenager themselves. But years later, their body rewards them with strength and energy, while others struggle with fatigue and disease. Tiny choices whisper into tomorrow louder than we realize. Psychologists call this the principle of compounding behavior. Neuroscience shows that repeated small actions create automatic pathways in the brain, turning decisions into habits, habits into lifestyle, lifestyle into character. Faith has spoken this truth for centuries in different words. The one who is faithful with little will also be faithful with much. Every drop of water may seem insignificant, but together they form the ocean. Every brick laid daily may seem ordinary, but together they build the fortress of a life. There is a danger in underestimating the power of small choices. Because they are quiet, we convince ourselves they do not matter. Skipping a workout just this once, speaking harshly just this once, lying just this once. Yet, just this once becomes the soil where roots dig deeper. Over time, it becomes the habit that directs our steps. Addiction begins not with a grand decision, but with a small indulgence. Wisdom begins not with a great achievement, but with a small act of discipline. Heaven and hell are built not in leaps, but in steps. Look at relationships. A spouse chooses to listen or to dismiss. A parent chooses to hug or to ignore. A friend chooses to reach out or to remain silent. None of these moments make the news. No one writes headlines about a father reading a bedtime story. But these moments accumulate into trust, intimacy, and loyalty, or into distance, suspicion, and loneliness. A single moment may not build or break a relationship, but repeated choices form the foundation or erode it into dust. Consider how God moves in Scripture. Rarely does transformation come in one dramatic moment. Instead, it comes through daily faithfulness. Manna appeared every morning, not a year at a time. The disciples followed Christ not through one heroic decision, but through countless small steps, learning, stumbling, rising again. God honors the ordinary because it is in the ordinary that character is forged. Small choices are sacred because they are the training ground of the soul. The world of science echoes this divine rhythm. The habit loop described by Charles Duhigg reveals how cues, routines, and rewards shape behavior. Every time you respond to a cue with a choice, your brain carves the pathway deeper. Over time, the brain stops asking permission and simply executes. That is why both destruction and greatness can feel effortless, because small choices repeated enough become who you are. Is not what you do occasionally that shapes you, is what you do consistently. Fear should awaken us here, because we realize how easily we drift. If you do not take control of your small choices, they will take control of you. If you do not intentionally plant seeds of wisdom, weeds of carelessness will grow without effort. Neglect is a choice. Passivity is a choice. Drifting is not neutral. It is moving in a direction whether you mean to or not. That is why people wake up 10 years later wondering how they arrived in a place of regret. They did not leap there. They drifted there through 1,000 small steps they thought did not matter. But hope also lives here, because the same law that multiplies neglect also multiplies faithfulness. Small steps in the right direction can heal what once seemed unhealable. A man who has wasted years can choose today to write one page, take one walk, say one prayer. A woman who feels broken can choose today to forgive one memory, speak one word of encouragement, make one healthier choice. These may feel too small to matter, but they are the beginning of a revolution inside. The oak tree was once an acorn. The marathon began with one step. The restored marriage began with one choice to try again. Let's return to the life of ordinary Americans sitting in their living rooms tonight. A teenager chooses whether to study for an hour or waste it. That choice shapes their confidence, their opportunities, their resilience. A mother chooses whether to speak life into her child or to speak criticism. That choice shapes the child's identity for years. A worker chooses whether to cut corners or to give their best. That choice shapes their integrity and how they are trusted. A retiree chooses whether to live each day in bitterness about the past or in gratitude for the present. That choice shapes whether the last chapters of life are heavy with sorrow or radiant with peace. When you zoom out, you see a pattern. Great lives are never built on one heroic decision. They are built on thousands of quiet ones. The world remembers Abraham Lincoln for his leadership, but his strength was formed through years of small choices to keep learning despite failure. The world remembers Mother Teresa for her impact, but her legacy was shaped through thousands of daily choices to serve the poor in obscurity. Your story will be no different. The headlines people may one day write about you will be traced back to the sentences you wrote daily in secret through your decisions. C.S. Lewis reminded us that each choice is turning us into a creature of glory or a creature of ruin. And the choices that seem trivial are often the ones carrying the greatest weight. A whisper of honesty instead of a lie. A step of courage instead of fear. A habit of prayer instead of neglect. Eternity is being woven in the smallest stitches. So do not despise the day of small decisions. Do not mock the power of quiet discipline. Every act of kindness, when no one notices, is carving your soul into something beautiful. Every act of compromise, when you think no one cares, is carving your soul into something smaller. You are writing yourself sentence by sentence, line by line. This is why today matters. Not next year, not someday, but today. Right now, you are faced with countless crossroads that seem unimportant. What you eat, what you think, what you say, how you treat those closest to you, what you allow into your mind. These crossroads will not feel heavy as you stand before them, but their weight will crush or crown you in the future. Every drop of water fills the cup. Every word spoken writes the story. Every step walked builds the road. And here is the mystery. Small choices do not stay small. They grow, they multiply, they shape your brain, they shape your heart, they shape your destiny. If you want to live a wise and healthy life, do not wait for the big stage, the dramatic test, the life-changing moment. Start now with the smallest decision in front of you, because one day you will look back and you will realize those little choices were not little at all. They were everything. There is a truth that shakes the soul once you see it clearly. Every choice is a link in a chain. The chains you are forging today will either set you free or bind you. Some people spend their lives wondering why they feel trapped, why peace escapes them, why joy slips through their fingers. What they do not realize is that the prison was not built in a day. It was built in 1,000 small choices, each one adding another bar, another lock, another wall. Others wake up to find themselves strong, unshaken, and radiant with freedom, and it is not because life spared them pain. It is because they chose to build chains of truth, chains of courage, chains of discipline that became a pathway to freedom. Look at honesty. One choice to lie feels harmless. It is just a small protection, just a way to avoid embarrassment. Then another lie is needed to cover the first, and another after that. Before long, life feels like a maze where every corner hides the fear of being exposed. The person who once thought they were in control now realizes they are enslaved. Fear drives them, not freedom. But the one who chooses honesty, even when it hurts, discovers that truth is not a burden, but a release. They sleep without fear. They walk without hiding. They speak without trembling. Chains of honesty do not weigh you down. They carry you into liberty. The same pattern is seen in forgiveness. To choose forgiveness once feels like weakness. To choose bitterness feels like strength. Yet bitterness does not remain a choice. It becomes a master. The person who refuses to forgive is the one who replays the wound day after day, carrying it into every conversation, every relationship. Their offender may have forgotten, but they are chained to the memory. Forgiveness, though painful, cuts the chain. It sets the heart free. It lifts the weight. The one who forgives walks lighter, breathes easier, and finds joy flowing where once only anger lived. Addiction shows this law with terrifying clarity. The first drink, the first pill, the first gamble, the first secret indulgence, none of these feel like chains. They feel like freedom, like pleasure, like control. But with repetition, the freedom fades and the cage closes. The brain rewires, the body craves, the will weakens. What began as choice becomes compulsion. What began as freedom becomes slavery. Neuroscience shows how dopamine floods create pathways that demand repetition, and soon the person is not choosing but obeying. This is why Scripture says, "You reap what you sow." The seed feels small, but the harvest cannot be escaped. This law is not only about the negative. Every good choice also creates chains, but these are chains that lead to freedom. The person who chooses discipline, waking early to train their body, finds themselves free when others are trapped by fatigue. The person who chooses to pray daily, even when it feels dry, finds themselves free when storms come because their soul has roots deep in eternal. The student who chooses to study faithfully finds themselves free in the future with doors wide open, while the one who avoided effort finds doors closed. Freedom is not the absence of limits, it is the result of the right chains. Think of a musician. To practice scales daily feels like a chain. To repeat drills when others play feels like bondage. But those chains of discipline lead to freedom when their fingers dance across the instrument effortlessly, when music flows like water. Think of an athlete. To run when tired, to train when sore, to eat with discipline feels like slavery to rules. Yet those choices forge chains of strength that carry them into freedom when they run faster, last longer, push harder than anyone else. Discipline is not prison, it is preparation for liberty. This is the paradox. Freedom is never free. To gain freedom, you must accept certain chains. The one who refuses all discipline is not free. They are enslaved to impulse. The one who chooses every pleasure is not free. They are bound by craving. True freedom comes from choosing the chains that align with truth, wisdom, and love. It comes from saying yes to what strengthens and no to what destroys. Think about speech. A person who lets words fly without thought feels powerful in the moment. They say whatever they feel, whenever they feel it. But soon they are trapped by broken relationships, by regret, by wounds they cannot take back. Another person chooses restraint, chooses words carefully, chooses to build instead of destroy. At first, it feels like holding back. Later, it becomes freedom. People trust them, respect them, open doors for them. Their words become currency because they are rare and true. Chains appear in every relationship. A husband chooses selfishness again and again until the bond with his wife feels suffocating. A wife chooses nagging again and again until the bond feels bitter. But when each chooses sacrifice, when each chooses tenderness, when each chooses patience, they discover chains of love that do not imprison but anchor them in storms. Those chains give them security and strength, not suffocation. Children understand this better than we think. A teenager who chooses to obey wise boundaries feels chained in the moment. They want to break free, to do as they please. Yet those boundaries are the very things that protect their freedom. Freedom from addiction, freedom from regret, freedom from scars that last decades. And the teenager who chooses rebellion feels powerful in the moment, but walks straight into slavery, to desires that will not let them go. This is why choice must never be treated lightly. It is not only about today, it is about the chains you are building for tomorrow. Each decision is a blacksmith's hammer, striking sparks in the night, forging iron links. Some links will one day bind you, and some will one day lift you. But every hammer strike counts. Think of the chain of daily habits. To hit snooze, to skip reading, to avoid effort feels harmless. But each choice forges another link. Soon you wake up to find yourself bound by laziness, unable to escape the grip of procrastination. On the other hand, to rise when the alarm rings, to open a book, to take one step of effort feels small. But each link connects into a chain of strength. Soon you find yourself free to achieve what others only dream. The divine view of this truth is fierce. Scripture does not shy away from calling sin slavery. To choose against God may feel like freedom at first, but it becomes chains that darken the soul. To choose God may feel like surrender, but it becomes chains of love that carry you into eternal liberty. Jesus said, "You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." That is not poetic metaphor, it is the deepest law of life. Truth frees. Lies enslave. Obedience frees. Rebellion enslaves. Fear should grip us here because this is not theory. It is daily reality. The person who cheats once on their taxes may find themselves enslaved to fear of discovery for years. The spouse who cheats once on their partner may find themselves enslaved to guilt or secrecy for decades. Chains grow fast, and they rarely break easily. You may think you control your choices, but soon your choices control you. Yet hope must also grip us here, because chains can be broken. Just as one wrong choice begins the chain of slavery, one right choice begins the chain of freedom. The addict can choose today to seek help. The liar can choose today to confess. The bitter heart can choose today to forgive. The lazy can choose today to rise. That single link can be the start of a new chain, one that leads to freedom instead of bondage. And when you choose with God's strength, the chains that once felt unbreakable shatter in His power. Science affirms this too. Neuroplasticity does not only form bad habits, it also forms new, healthy ones. The same brain that learned slavery can learn freedom. The same body that craved poison can crave health. The same heart that clung to bitterness can learn compassion. The key is choice, repeated daily until the new chain is stronger than the old. Freedom and slavery are not abstract. They are felt in the quiet moments of your life. You know the weight of slavery when you cannot stop replaying a wound, when you cannot resist a craving, when you cannot sleep because lies haunt you. You know the strength of freedom when you can rest without fear, when you can walk without shame, when you can face storms with peace. Every chain begins with choice. So let the seriousness of this truth awaken you. The choice you make tonight, tomorrow, this week, is not just about a moment. It is about the chains you are building. Ask yourself, will these chains hold me captive or hold me steady? Will they drag me into darkness or lift me into light? Will they make me a prisoner or make me a warrior? Your life will be bound one way or another. The only question is by what? Choose chains of discipline, chains of love, chains of truth, chains of faith, and you will discover a freedom so vast it cannot be shaken. Choose chains of selfishness, chains of lies, chains of bitterness, chains of indulgence, and you will discover a slavery so deep it steals years from your soul. The choice is always before you. Every day, every hour, every moment. Choose wisely because the chains you forge today will be the life you live tomorrow. There are moments in life when the weight of a single choice can change the direction of everything that follows. A decision spoken in anger, a careless act of selfishness, a door walked through without thought, or even one missed opportunity can carve a path that cannot be retraced. The sobering truth is that not all choices are reversible. Some close a chapter permanently, and no amount of wishing can turn back the pages. This reality is not meant to paralyze us with fear, but to awaken us to the sacred responsibility that rests in our hands every time we decide. Every person listening has felt this weight before. A word left unsaid when it could have healed, or a word spoken too sharply that left scars. A night where temptation seemed small, but the consequences became heavy. A path that looked harmless at the start, but grew darker with every step. These are not simply accidents of life. They are the result of choices, and the deeper we understand that, the more clarity we gain about the power entrusted to us. There is a holy kind of fear in realizing that time does not rewind. Science tells us that once a neuron fires in a certain pathway, the connection strengthens, and the brain begins to favor that route. In the same way, choices set pathways in our lives, and once a road is taken, even if we later regret it, the landscape of our soul has been altered. That does not mean there is no forgiveness, no grace, no healing. But it does mean that consequences live on, like ripples spreading through water. A single stone thrown into a lake may sink, but the rings it creates keep moving outward, touching shores unseen. Think of the parent who chooses neglect or the partner who chooses betrayal. Even if forgiveness comes, the trust that was shattered carries a scar that shapes future relationships. On the other hand, think of the person who chooses to step into courage, to stand for what is right, to offer love when bitterness felt easier. That choice sends ripples too, ripples of hope, ripples that can change not just one life, but generations to come. The fear of irreversible choices keeps us sober, but the beauty of them gives us hope. There is beauty in the fact that one decision can shift a life from despair to purpose. A man in the depths of addiction who chooses one day to walk into a meeting to ask for help creates a turning point that echoes into his family, his children, and their children. A woman who chooses to forgive the person who wronged her does not just release her own soul from prison. She breaks a chain that could have carried bitterness into her children's hearts. Science even supports this truth in the study of epigenetics. Our choices, our habits, and even our emotional patterns can influence not only our own bodies, but the genetic expression of generations to come. When you choose health, when you choose peace, when you choose integrity, you may very well be altering the very blueprint of your descendants. That is the staggering beauty of choice, the power to create a legacy that lives beyond your lifetime. It is tempting to live as though choices are light, as though they carry no real weight. Culture often tells us that we can do what we want, and if we regret it later, we can simply undo it. But that is not truth. You cannot unspeak a word of cruelty. You cannot unbreak a heart. You cannot undo years of ignoring your health, your mind, or your spirit. Those moments teach us that we are not playing games with our existence. Life is not a dress rehearsal where we can practice and then try again. This is the stage, and every act performed becomes part of the story. That realization might feel terrifying, but can also awaken a deeper strength inside us. If we treat choices as sacred, if we recognize their eternal weight, then even the smallest decision becomes meaningful. Whether you choose to tell the truth when it costs you, to wake up and move your body instead of surrendering to decay, to pray when anxiety tells you to give in, these decisions matter because they build who you are becoming. C.S. Lewis once said that every day, with every choice, we are turning ourselves into a creature of heaven or a creature of hell. That is not exaggeration. It is not poetic flourish. It is a reminder that your soul is in constant motion, and each decision pulls you one way or the other. The thought should stir both reverence and courage. Fear because wasting time or making careless decisions leads to a path that grows darker the longer we walk it. Courage because even one step toward the light can begin a journey of redemption. There are stories of men and women who wasted years in bitterness, years in compromise, years in selfish pursuits, but then one decisive choice turned the direction of their lives. That choice did not erase the past, but gave them a new future. That is where the beauty of irreversible choices shines brighter than the fear. While you cannot undo certain mistakes, you can begin again on a higher road. You cannot erase yesterday, but you can make today the beginning of something greater. Think of history and how it has been marked by single, irreversible choices. A leader chooses courage in the face of tyranny, and generations are freed. A soldier chooses to protect another with his life, and a family line continues that would have been lost. A teacher chooses to believe in a struggling child, and that child grows into a voice that transforms the world. These are not grand exaggerations. They are testimonies of the power of choice. Even in your own life, the choices you make about how to treat people, how to spend your time, how to guard your mind, are shaping ripples you may never fully see. The teenager who chooses discipline over rebellion may become the adult who leads a family into stability. The adult who chooses faith instead of despair may become the grandparent whose prayers and wisdom cover generations. Every choice matters because every choice lives longer than you do. There is also a deep spiritual truth that cannot be ignored. The divine order of life has always emphasized the seriousness of decisions. Scripture is filled with stories where a single choice determined the outcome of a people. Adam and Eve chose disobedience, and humanity was marked. Joshua challenged the people with the words, "Choose this day whom you will serve." Jesus himself invited people into the narrow road, not by accident, but by choice. God has given humanity the dignity of freedom, and with that freedom comes responsibility. The soul is not a victim of fate, but a product of decisions aligned with or against divine truth. That is why the weight of irreversible choices matters so much. Eternity is tied to them. A single decision to follow light instead of darkness changes not just your days on earth, but your destiny beyond time. Psychology confirms what the divine has spoken for centuries. The brain is plastic, capable of change, but the patterns it learns are influenced heavily by decisions. Repeated choices carve habits, and habits carve character. When you choose discipline, the brain rewards you with stronger self-control. When you choose indulgence, the brain reinforces craving. Over time, these patterns become so ingrained that they feel like identity. That is why scientists call habits second nature. But second nature is nothing more than first choices repeated until they stick. This knowledge is both sobering and empowering. If you have lived in destructive choices, you have trained your mind to prefer them. If you begin choosing differently, you can rewire the very architecture of your brain. The past cannot be undone, but the future can be reshaped. The beauty of irreversible choices is also found in the stories of redemption. The man who decides one day to step away from bitterness becomes the source of healing in his family. The young person who chooses to walk away from the crowd's destructive path may become the one who breaks cycles of poverty or dysfunction. The parent who chooses to speak life over their child instead of criticism may set in motion a confidence that transforms that child's entire trajectory. These choices do not just alter a moment, they alter a destiny. And while some opportunities once lost may never return, new opportunities are born from the courage of a new decision. The past may remain etched, but the future remains unwritten, waiting for the choices of today. There is wisdom in carrying both the fear and the beauty together. Fear keeps you sober. It reminds you that words matter, actions matter, time matters. Beauty gives you hope. It tells you that even one choice can spark light in the darkest season. Both are necessary for a life of wisdom. To pretend that choices carry no weight is to live foolishly. To believe that all is lost after one failure is to live hopelessly. The truth lies in between. Life is sacred because choices are sacred. And you, with every breath, are given the chance to choose again. So as you stand in the crossroads of your days, never underestimate the power resting in your next decision. Do not treat lightly what shapes eternity. Do not excuse away the little actions that quietly shape your soul. See the fear of irreversible choices as a guardian keeping you alert, and see the beauty of them as an invitation into greatness. With each step, you are becoming something eternal. With each word, you are either building or breaking. With each decision, you are shaping not just your life, but the lives of many who will come after you. The brush is in your hand. The canvas is open before you. Choose with the awareness that some strokes cannot be erased, but also with the hope that one stroke can begin a masterpiece. There is a truth most people overlook because they are so focused on the urgent moments that scream for attention. They wait for grand decisions, the crossroads that feel dramatic, the kind of choices that novels are written about. Yet the true weight of a life is rarely carried on those monumental days. It rests in the accumulation of daily choices, the quiet decisions that no one applauds, the unseen moments that never make headlines. The eternal weight of your life is shaped not by the rare events, but by the repeated actions that seem almost invisible while they are happening. When C.S. Lewis said every person is turning themselves into a creature of heaven or hell through every act, he was not exaggerating. He was pointing to this hidden law of the soul. Think of the way a river carves through rock. The water is not dramatic in a single moment. One day's flow cannot split stone. Yet, day after day, drop after drop, the water shapes the landscape until a canyon is born. In the same way, the daily choices you make cut into your character, forming grooves of virtue or grooves of destruction. When you choose to wake with gratitude instead of complaint, you set the tone of your spirit. When you choose discipline instead of indulgence, you train your body and mind for resilience. When you choose to speak kindness instead of sarcasm, you strengthen love in your relationships. None of those moments feels like eternity when they happen, but each one carries eternal weight because it is sculpting who you are becoming. Science confirms this with startling clarity. Neuroscientists tell us that every action fires pathways in the brain, and the more a pathway is used, the stronger it becomes. Habits are not accidents, they are the byproducts of repeated choices. Psychology teaches us that identity is not discovered but constructed through patterns. What you repeatedly do becomes who you believe yourself to be. If you rise daily to pursue learning, you start to see yourself as wise. If you repeatedly surrender to distraction, you begin to see yourself as weak. Over time, these small choices define the story you tell about yourself. That is why so many people feel trapped in cycles, because they do not realize their identity is being shaped by the little decisions they are making every day. The miracle is that identity can change. By choosing differently, you write a new story. There is also a divine layer to this truth. Scripture says that even a cup of cold water given in kindness is noticed by heaven. That means that no act, however small, is wasted. Every choice resonates beyond the visible world into eternity. It is easy to think that only great acts of sacrifice matter, but the eternal weight rests on the daily faithfulness, the ordinary courage, the hidden obedience. God does not measure the size of the stage, He measures the faith in the choice. The student who chooses honesty on a test when no one would notice is carrying eternal weight in that moment. The worker who chooses integrity instead of cutting corners is shaping a soul aligned with truth. The parent who chooses to pray with a child instead of dismissing them is planting seeds that grow into eternity. These choices are not forgotten, even if the world never applauds them. They are written into the very fabric of eternity. Fear rises when we realize that daily choices carry this much weight because it means that nothing is neutral. To waste time on distractions, to choose bitterness over forgiveness, to give in to self-pity instead of standing in faith, all of these carry weight too. The danger of life is not always in catastrophic decisions, but in the quiet erosion of small compromises. One day missed in prayer becomes a week. One day of anger becomes a habit of resentment. One indulgence becomes a lifestyle of excess. This is how souls drift, not with sudden explosions, but with slow surrender. That is why wisdom tells us to guard our daily steps. The road to destruction is not paved in one moment of rebellion, is laid stone by stone in ordinary choices that seemed insignificant at the time. But just as fear is a teacher, hope is a guide. The beauty of this truth is that daily choices carry not only danger, but incredible opportunity. If a single choice of discipline, of kindness, of courage is repeated daily, it creates momentum that nothing can stop. The young man who chooses each day to study instead of wasting hours will, in time, stand wiser than his peers. The woman who chooses daily to bless her body with health instead of abuse will live longer, stronger, more capable of serving. The elder who chooses daily to forgive instead of holding grudges will die with peace instead of torment. The beauty of daily choices is that they are available to everyone. You do not need wealth, fame, or power to live a meaningful life. You need only to guard the little choices, and eternity itself bends to the weight of those decisions. Consider history again. Some of the greatest revolutions did not begin with grand battles, but with daily persistence. Rosa Parks did not change history simply because she refused to give up her seat one day. That choice mattered, but it was built on a lifetime of daily courage, small acts of quiet resistance to injustice. Mother Teresa did not impact the world because of one dramatic moment. She did it through daily choices to tend to the forgotten, to see Christ in the least of these. Their legacies are eternal because their daily decisions accumulated into lives that carried the weight of heaven. Psychologists call this the compound effect. Small daily actions multiplied over time create results far greater than we anticipate. The person who saves a little money daily builds wealth. The person who practices daily builds mastery. The person who prays daily builds spiritual strength. Eternity honors this law because faithfulness is rewarded. This is why it is dangerous to despise small beginnings. To ignore the weight of daily choices is to throw away the opportunity for transformation. To embrace them is to step into a power most people overlook. The eternal weight of daily choices should awaken us to gratitude. Every morning we are given breath, we are given another chance to choose differently. Even if yesterday was wasted, today carries fresh opportunity. Every sunrise is an invitation to begin again, to write a different story, to shape a different eternity. Regret may whisper that it is too late, but eternity speaks louder, declaring that as long as there is breath, there is choice. The past cannot be undone, but the present can redirect the future. That is why each day carries such gravity. It is not just another square on a calendar. It is a stage on which eternal decisions are made. There is something thrilling in realizing that eternity listens to the ordinary. Your choice to love today echoes forever. Your choice to forgive today loosens chains you cannot see. Your choice to discipline yourself today prepares you for doors you have not yet reached. Life is not waiting for some distant dramatic moment. Life is happening in the little decisions you are making right now. These are the brushstrokes painting the masterpiece of your soul. C.S. Lewis once wrote that every human interaction is with an eternal being. That means the way you treat the person at the store, the way you respond to a stranger online, the way you speak to your children, is interacting with eternity. If that does not give weight to daily choices, nothing will. When you realize that every person you meet is immortal, then every word spoken has significance. To curse is to wound forever. To bless is to heal forever. To ignore is to dismiss the infinite. To embrace is to honor the eternal. Daily choices matter because they are always in the context of eternity. There is also a profound peace in embracing the eternal weight of daily choices. It frees you from the lie that you must do something extraordinary to live a meaningful life. You do not need to move mountains in one moment. You need to push the stone a little each day. Over time, the mountain moves. The eternal does not demand perfection, but faithfulness. One choice at a time, repeated with sincerity, becomes a legacy of greatness. The small decision to pray daily may not look like much, but it shapes a soul sensitive to God's voice. The small decision to eat wisely may not feel spiritual, but it strengthens a body prepared for service. The small decision to study, to read, to grow, equips a mind ready for purpose. When you see life this way, nothing is wasted. Every choice, no matter how small, is a thread in the tapestry of eternity. So let this truth settle deep into your spirit. Every day is not ordinary. Every choice is not small. The eternal weight rests on the daily faithfulness of your life. Do not despise it and do not ignore it. Step into it with reverence and with hope. Because one day, when time is gone and eternity is all that remains, you will see that the little decisions, the unnoticed acts, the quiet faithfulness, carried more weight than you ever realized. They were the moments that built your destiny, shaped your soul, and wrote your eternal story. Life is filled with events you cannot control. Pain comes, betrayal arrives, storms break into your calm, and unexpected seasons rewrite the plans you thought were secure. Every person alive knows what it feels like to face something they did not choose. But while circumstances press against you, the greatest power still rests in your hands. It is the power of response, the power to decide who you will become in the face of what happens. This is the final choice, the one that matters most. It is not what others did to you, not what was taken from you, not what the world throws in your path. It is the choice of what you will make of it, who you will become because of it. That decision holds more weight than the event itself. History is filled with people who were crushed by unfairness, but it is also filled with those who rose above it. Two people can experience the same pain, but one emerges bitter and broken while the other emerges wiser and stronger. The difference is not in the pain itself, but in the choice of response. A person betrayed in love may choose to shut their heart forever, living in fear of trust, and in that choice they shrink into a shadow. Another person betrayed may choose forgiveness, may choose to keep their heart open, and through that decision they grow into someone radiant with strength. Pain alone does not define us. Response defines us. Psychology calls this the locus of control. Some live with an external locus, believing life happens to them, and they are helpless victims of circumstance. Others live with an internal locus, believing that while they cannot control events, they can always control response. Science consistently shows that those with an internal locus live healthier, longer, more fulfilling lives. They have resilience because they know that even in suffering, there is choice. Neuroscience adds to this truth. The brain rewires itself when faced with challenge. If a person chooses courage instead of despair, new pathways form that make courage easier the next time. If they choose despair, the brain learns helplessness. Each decision is not just emotional but physical, shaping the very architecture of the mind. Spiritual wisdom has always confirmed this. Scripture shows us that trials refine like fire, but only when the heart chooses to trust in God during the heat. The Psalms are full of cries of pain, yet they nearly always end in choice. Yet will I praise you. Job lost everything, yet chose not to curse God. Joseph was betrayed by his brothers, yet chose to interpret his suffering through the lens of divine purpose, declaring, "What you meant for evil, God meant for good." These are not just old stories. They are testimonies of the greatest human power, to choose who you will become when life is not fair. Think about the people you admire most. They are rarely those who had perfect lives without hardship. They are those who turn hardship into wisdom. They faced storms, yet chose not to be destroyed. They turned their wounds into teaching, their losses into compassion, their disappointments into determination. This is the essence of the final choice. You cannot erase pain, but you can choose what it will make of you. You cannot rewrite betrayal, but you can decide whether it will poison you or purify you. You cannot stop death from visiting your world, but you can choose whether to collapse in despair or rise in faith. C.S. Lewis captured this when he said there are two kinds of people in the end: those who say to God, "Thy will be done," and those to whom God says, "Thy will be done." That statement is not about circumstances, but about the final posture of the soul. Will you choose to align with light, to trust even when you do not understand, to let pain carve you into something deeper? Or will you choose rebellion, bitterness, and the shrinking of your soul? Every day you are being formed into one of these two kinds of people, not by what happens to you, but by the choice of how you respond. There is a kind of fear that arises when you realize this. It means you cannot blame life for who you become. It means you cannot blame betrayal, cannot blame hardship, cannot blame anyone else for the soul you carry. That is sobering because it puts the responsibility back in your hands. Yet it is also empowering because it means no one can take away your freedom to respond with courage, with faith, with dignity. Even if you are stripped of everything else, that power remains. Viktor Frankl, a survivor of the concentration camps, wrote that everything can be taken from a man except the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. That truth has echoed through history because it cannot be broken. Response is always yours. Think of the times in your life when you were wronged. Maybe someone spoke words that tore into you, or someone abandoned you when you needed them most. In those moments, something inside you hardened or softened. You either chose to carry that wound as bitterness, letting it fester into distrust, or you chose to heal, to forgive, to rise stronger. That choice shaped not just that moment, but the rest of your life. Because one choice of bitterness makes forgiveness harder tomorrow, and one choice of forgiveness makes bitterness weaker tomorrow. Over time, those small responses become the architecture of your character. You are not just reacting to life. You are becoming something eternal through each reaction. Even health is tied to this final choice. Studies show that people who choose forgiveness heal faster, live longer, and carry less stress. Those who choose bitterness carry higher risks of heart disease, anxiety, and depression. Science is simply catching up to what wisdom already declared. Your response is not just emotional, it is physical. Your body carries the story of your choices. A forgiving spirit releases health into your cells. A bitter spirit poisons them. That is why choosing who you become is not just spiritual poetry, it is biological reality. This choice is not easy. Choosing light in darkness feels unnatural. Choosing hope in despair feels foolish. Choosing love after betrayal feels impossible. But this is where the soul grows. Diamonds are not formed in comfort, they are formed under pressure. Souls of greatness are not formed in easy lives, they are shaped in fire. The question is not whether the fire comes, but whether you allow it to consume you or refine you. Every trial asks this question: who will you become because of this? There is beauty in realizing that even the worst of life can be redeemed through this choice. You may never erase the pain of loss, but you can let it make you tender to the pain of others. You may never erase the injustice done to you, but you can let it fuel a fire for justice that changes lives. You may never erase the mistakes of your past, but you can let them become wisdom that guides others away from the same traps. Redemption does not erase the wound, but it transforms it into something holy. Scars remain, but scars can shine as proof of survival, proof of grace, proof that the final choice was not defeat, but transformation. This is why the final choice is the most important one. Circumstances will pass, storms will fade, people will come and go, but the soul you become remains. At the end of life, the story written over you will not be about the pain you endured, but about the choices you made in response. Will people say you became bitter, small, and angry, or will they say you became wise, compassionate, and radiant with light? Will your life testify to despair or to resilience? That choice rests with you. So stand today with clarity. Do not waste your energy trying to control every storm. Focus instead on mastering your response. Choose who you will be, no matter what comes. Choose faith when fear whispers. Choose love when hate shouts. Choose forgiveness when revenge tempts. Choose growth when pain presses. These decisions do not just shape your days, they shape your eternity. The world may strip you of much, but it cannot strip you of this. That is why this choice carries eternal weight. And when the last chapter of your life is read, it will not be the betrayals, the losses, or the storms that define you. It will be the soul you chose to become through them all. That is the final choice, the one no one else can make for you. The brush is still in your hand, the canvas still open. Every stroke is forming the masterpiece of your destiny. You have walked through every layer of this message, and now the weight of it rests in your hands. Life will not pause for you. It will not slow down to let you catch your breath. It will not remove the storms you prayed would never come. Yet there is something greater than storms and louder than pain, and it is the sound of your choice echoing through eternity. Every decision you make, every response you give, every direction you set is shaping not just your present, but the destiny of your soul. That truth is both terrifying and breathtaking. It means you hold in your spirit the power to rise or collapse, to walk in light or to stumble in darkness, to leave behind a legacy of wisdom or to be remembered only for the scars of regret. There are people right now who surrendered their lives to bitterness, and they no longer see beauty in anything. There are others who faced equal or greater pain but chose forgiveness, and today they radiate a peace that no storm can touch. Which path do you want carved into your story? Every heart in this world longs to matter, longs to be remembered, longs to leave something behind that is more than survival. But survival is never enough. You were not created just to endure. You were created to overcome. Think of how brief your time truly is. Breath after breath, day after day, it feels endless until suddenly it isn't. There will come a moment when you no longer have the luxury of deciding tomorrow. The choice will be closed, the book sealed, and only one question will matter. Who did you become? That reality should shake you, but it should also set you on fire. Because right now, while blood runs through your veins and strength still fills your bones, the brush is still in your hand. You can rewrite the next chapter. You can stop carrying excuses, stop letting fear dictate your voice, stop letting the world control your direction. The people who change the world are not those who never fell, but those who stood back up one more time than they were knocked down. The people who find God's power are not those who never wept, but those who turn their tears into prayers. The people who leave a mark are not those who live the easiest lives, but those who chose courage when life gave them every reason to give up. That can be you. That is still within you. Do not tell yourself you are too broken, too late, too far gone. That is the whisper of defeat, not the truth of destiny. Greatness is not the absence of failure, but the refusal to let failure have the last word. The story of your life is still unfolding, and the ink has not run dry. What matters is the decision you make now, this moment, this heartbeat, this sacred second. You're standing at the intersection of fear and faith, weakness and strength, excuses and action. And the path you choose will echo not just through your own future, but through the lives of everyone connected to you. Your children will feel it. Your friends will see it. Generations not yet born will walk in the shadow of the choices you make. That weight is heavy, but it is also holy. Because while you cannot control the storm, you can decide to become the kind of person the storm could not destroy. You can be the one who carries wisdom instead of wounds, who speaks faith instead of fear, who shows love instead of hate. That is the highest calling of a soul, to stand in the chaos and still choose light. So let this moment sink in. You are not powerless. You are not trapped. You are not at the mercy of the world. You have been given the gift that shapes kings and prophets, warriors and survivors, leaders and healers. The gift of choice. Use it with courage. Use it with fire. Use it with wisdom. And when your story is told, let it be said of you, the storms came, but they could not break who you became.